Okay, so now the fun begins. I was just having a quick read of the instructions there, and not only does it look a little bit finicky, there's also a specific version 2 warning, which is that it has particularly complex handrails, which need to be, it says, considered when pulling the body apart. So I suspect that might prove a bit of fun anyway in advance, and this is the version 2, so trust me to choose one that's extra challenging. Anyway, I've got the cradle here. I'm going to turn it over because the first thing that we need to do is to remove some screws. So let's get on with step 1. Okay, so I'm just going to turn it over and pop it into the cradle. Now, even using a cradle, you still need to be really careful because some of these details at the front here are barely clinging on and they're very narrow. So even with a cradle, just be careful how it sits in it there. So what we need to do is to use a small Phillips crosshead screwdriver to remove 2 screws right in at the front here, just behind the buffer, so the front buffer beam. So we'll just do that now. As I probably mentioned before in previous videos, having a magnetized screwdriver makes these jobs really pretty easy, and you can pick up a magnetizer and demagnetizer pretty cheaply online, and it'll work on most screwdrivers. Okie dokie, that's those screws out anyway. So the next bit that it mentions in the instructions is to remove the handrail. So I'm just going to pop the cradle out of the way just for 1 minute and pop it over. So I think what we want to do is probably to release these 2 handrails here. But it also talks about pulling the cab off. So I'm just going to give a wee wiggle here. Yep, so I think the cab is, the cab, just a little wiggle to one side like that and it will slide up. So it's just held by friction, I think, actually, looking at it. So anyway, so that's good. That was easy. So we'll pop that to one side. Let's just pop it over there for now. Now, I think the handrails that it's saying on version 2 that are particularly delicate is probably this section here, and I'm not sure if they're handrails or pipework. I rather suspect they're pipework, but it looks to me as if there's pipes here at the front, handrails rather, sorry, at the front here. So I think these are the ones that we need to be careful about. We can ignore all this because this is all connected onto the body. So it's these ones at the front here. So I've just got a pair of pliers. These are not pliers, they're tweezers. These are plastic tweezers, which are very useful for electronics if you don't want static, but they're also good for this kind of work because they tend to reduce the potential to scratch paint off. So I'm just going to see what we can do here. Right, okay, so I can see the handrails are fixed on this side, and they're also fixed on this side, and there's also pipe work which is coming up from the vacuum and so on, brake pipes up to these, and that's going to need to be released somehow. So I'm going to just switch the camera off and have a good look at this to try and get my head around it and work out how we'll get things moving. Okay, now I've made a little bit of progress, and I think what I'll probably do is make some progress, show you what I've done, make some progress, show what you've done, and hopefully eventually we'll get to taking the body off without too much damage. So I'll just bring it up as close as I possibly can here to the camera just to let you see. Now the first thing that I've done is these outer handrails here, one on that side and then one on this side here. I've just used this very sort of needle-nosed set of plastic tweezers and I just pop them around the bottom and carefully clamp them and just wiggled them very slightly as I was lifting up, and that has freed it from the body on this side, and again on this side over here wiggled it very slightly and freed it and lifted it up. Now that has freed this side and this side of the body ready to lift off. Now the next ones that we need to do is this pipe here and this pipe here, and once those 2 pipes are released, as far as I can see, the body should lift off. So this is pretty tricky work actually, and if you don't have a steady hand or you don't have much patience, or you don't have something delicate but good for tweezing things like this, then it's maybe something you want to leave to somebody else. But anyway, I'll just ease it ever so slightly there. It's lifting up as I do that. To be honest with you, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the camera off again so that I can use 2 hands to do this. But I think what we need to do is lift it up just to pry it away with one set of tweezers, and then swoop in from the other side with another set just to pull it up that final bit. So that's what I'm going to do, and I'll, fingers crossed, come back with success. Okay, so I have made some more progress. I have managed to lever off this little pipe here. And the way that I did it was, in the end, I put my finger here so that it was just standing slightly proud of all the handrails. And then I brought in this set of metal tweezers just underneath the pipe and pivoted it off my finger so that it wasn't going to touch the paintwork at all. And that was just enough to pop this bit of pipe work out of the hole and free it up. Now that has left just one single bit of pipe, which is on the other side here, this one here, still left to come out, and I'm going to try that in a similar kind of way. The one thing that I mentioned, and you see this with the Class 08 as well, with the metal, I think it's wiring pipes it has. As soon as you move the metal, the paint chips off. But again, this is white matte paint, so it's going to be easy enough to touch up, so I'm not too worried. The main thing is not to scratch the rest of the body and not to bend the pipes. So I'll shut up and I'll get back to taking this last pipe off, and hopefully, fingers crossed, that's all we need to do to get into the body. Okay, well actually, I tell a lie, that was much more straightforward than I thought it was going to be. So we don't have to take this second pipe off here. That one is fine leaving that in. We just have to remove this single pipe off the body, because what happens is, as soon as you start lifting the body up, then the pipe which is connected to this, that goes straight up into that, lifts away. So as long as this pipe here is disconnected, this handrail is disconnected, this handrail is disconnected, and this white one here that's running down here, that should either be disconnected or it'll disconnect itself. But once you've done that, the body will lift up and lift away. So there you have it. It's fiddly work, but it's actually not quite as difficult as I was expecting it to be. So let's pop the body down safely somewhere and have a look at the chassis. Okay, so that's us finally got inside the shunter here. So what have we got? Well, we've got a solid cast chassis section here. Underneath the top here, we've got the motor, and just in looking in the cab here, you can see a tiny little worm gear going down to feed I suspect it's nylon cog underneath. We have the 6-pin socket here, and we have a little blanking plug that's in it for DC operation. Looking at this, I suspect we might just about be able to sneak in one of Hatton's 6-pin decoders, but don't quote me on it, and it's quite possible that you'd have to shave that or sand that down, so I'm not sure. But the one that I bought anyway is the Gauge Master DCC 23. It's their little 6-pin chip. It is more than enough. Let's just pop it up there so you can see all the blurb. There we go. It is more than capable of driving this little shunter, not a problem in terms of current draw and capacity. It has 2 functions in it, this decoder, as far as I'm aware, and yeah, 2 functions, and that's great because this little loco does have lighting as well. It has, I think it's a single red and a single white lamp on one side, and although it might actually, looking at this, there might be LEDs higher up, so I'll need to check once the chip's in. It has lighting as well on the other side. Looking at it when I was running it on DC, you have to have it going at a reasonable speed before you'll see any of these, because the LEDs really are tiny. But I'm hopeful that on the DCC chip the lighting might be slightly more impressive. But we'll get to that in due course. So I'm going to open this, take it out of the box, and then look at fitting it. Okay, so we've got the normal blurb that comes with these decoders, so I'll just pop that to one side and read it before I go to bed. We've got the decoder itself. What I'm going to do in due course, as I normally do, is give it a loose wrap of Kapton tape, just to make sure that there's not going to be any shorting out. Looking at it here, there is card or some kind of insulating material between the metal, but I like to give it a little wrap of tape just to be on the safe side. I'm also going to remove this sellotape, which seems to have gone over the top here. I really hate this stuff that they put on. It's it always leaves a sticky residue, which can be a real pain, particularly if you get it on your fingers and then get it onto the body of the loco. It's probably just the cheapest option available to them at the price point. Right, okay, so looking at it here, so on this one, pin 1 is at this side here. Let's just make it here. This is pin 1 according to the blanking plug, and that would make that pin 6. Now the decoder that I've got, pin 1 happens to be on this side, so we're going to need to install it the other way up with the numbers down. But looking at it there is more than enough room for this Gauge Master DCC 23 chip to fit in. So definitely, if you're going to do this yourself, this chip will fit and it should work fine with this locomotive. Okay, so I'm just going to remove that blanking plug. I'm just going to pull it back slightly, just using one of the diodes to help me with that. And then set of tweezers, there we go, that's it out. Double check that. Yep. The insulating material here is really pretty. It's pretty substantial, and as far as I can see, yeah, there's not going to be any shorts on this. So I think this time I will forgo the Kapton tape. Right. So as I say, pin 1 is at this end, pin 1 is at this end. So let's just start to slide that in there. There we go. I'm just going to make sure that these wires are not trapped. This side there. There we go. That's great. And then I'm just going to push it home. There we go. Okay, brilliant. So that is it fitted in. What I'm going to do now is bring in the test track, because I don't want to put the body back on, go through all that rigmarole and then find it isn't working. So we'll give this a quick test in the test track. I'll do that off camera, you don't need to see that being done. Assuming it is working fine, then I'll come back, we'll pop the lid on, put all the pipe work back in, and then we'll give it another test on the test track and check out these lights. Okay, good news, everything works absolutely fine. So what I've done is just used a bit of Kapton tape that I cut off before, just to replace the cheapy sellotape or whatever it is that I took off before. Everything is now fitted down fine. The lights do work reasonably well on this offering. They're certainly better than the old 5 lights, I think it is, that I've seen before. But anyway, so what we can do now is move on to replacing the body. So first of all, we need to bring this back in again and carefully slide that back in. We need to be just as careful sliding this back in. There we go. That's the handrail off. We'll be able to glue that back on, I think. Yeah, that'll be fine. So what I'm going to do is just very carefully pop everything back in, and of course glue the handrail back on again, and then we'll come back to the next stage. Okay, so I have the handrails back on again. This one is now glued back in place. It actually turns out that it was glued in slightly the wrong position in any case, but I've had to glue it back onto the wrong position because it just wouldn't fit where I think it was meant to. This pipe is back in place as well. These ones are all back. Everything is fine. It looks exactly how it did before I started the project. Nothing has been bent or broken beyond any repair. The only thing is, it is now missing bits of paint, because of course these are little bits of metal wire, and as soon as you even touch them with a pair of tweezers, even the plastic tweezers using, the paint flakes off. So I've got my acrylic white and a very fine paintbrush here, all ready and waiting just to touch these up again, and that'll be fine. I'll touch them up and I'll make it so it looks like I've never been in there. But again, if you don't have a steady hand and you're not very sure about doing this, this is probably not the DCC installation for you. And I have to say, I mean, Heljan, come on. I mean, this is not a good thing to do. This is not a good way to design a locomotive. I mean, it's a beautiful loco. I love it. I'm going to really enjoy doing it. But to make it so that 5% of owners are going to give it a shot at DCCing, installing themselves, and I think at least one of the model shops online has said they're not going to install DCC chips because it's too fiddly. Now, we've got to be able to do better than that, don't we? So anyway, I'll get the cab back onto this and then we'll give it a shot on the rolling road. But while it gets maybe a 8 or 9 out of 10 for looks, in terms of ease of installing a chip, 4 at most. Just before I replace the cab on, there is no floor to the cab here. The cab floor is part of the chassis, or it's screwed into the chassis. So I don't have any drivers at the moment. I'm waiting for someone to arrive. But if you do, now is the time to put them in. My guess is you, at most, would need to cut their feet off, but you might get away for a change without cutting anything off. You could just use some deluxe material. Is it tacky wax, I think they call it? A wee blob on there, stick your driver in and then slide the top back on. No, job's a good one. But this cab element is actually really easy to get off. So as long as all you're wanting to do is get in to put a driver in, no big deal. If you're wanting to get in to put in a DCC chip, slightly bigger deal. Right, okay, so to put the cab back on, just make sure it's orientated the right way around and then carefully slide it back into place like that. That's all there is to it. Okay, so after that slightly traumatic chip installation, we've got the loco on the rolling road fixed up to my test bench DCC multi-mouse controller. So let's just give it a little bit of juice. So straight away we can see that this is performing really nicely, really well at DCC. There's, I think, only one speed step here. Yeah, just one speed step and it's turning. Now, you didn't get this off the DC control. It was pretty good on DC control, but you didn't get such good slow-mo performance. So let's just speed it up a little bit there. Really nice, yeah. Yeah, it's good. The motor's still noisy. I don't think it's really any quieter, but performing really nicely, yeah. So let's try these lights as well, see how well they come out. Right, so there we have it. We've got the red and the white on one end, and as far as I'm aware, that's actually prototypical for shunters, I think. But if I'm wrong, please do feel free to correct me in the comments below. Let's just pop that down and I'll just spin this round so that we can see the lights on the rear there, hopefully. Got enough length there. Okay, so let's just go in the other direction there. Yeah, so you can see the lights are a bit fainter on the reverse there, but we're still getting some good movement. Let's just turn it around so that we can see it on the side there. So some good reverse movement. I really love the way that this little section at the front of the con rods is working there. I need to find out what that is called and post it in the video. Excellent. So yeah, it's looking good in reverse too. And then another quick little whiz it forward there. Good bit of speed there. Yeah. Okay, so there we have it. A quick introduction to Heljan's new 07 Shunter, and also having a little look under the bonnet and installing the DCC chip. As I say, I really like the model. I think it looks good. I think the detailing is on the whole really nice. It's got a good quality feel to it. It looks the part. The livery's nice. There's some great livery options. But in terms of the DCC installation point of view, in theory it should be dead easy. This should pop off really quickly once you've taken the screws out. But the detailing on the front here on this version 2 makes it a bit of a nightmare, to be honest, and I can quite see how some shops have said they're not willing to do paid for installations, because undoubtedly there's going to be some kind of damage, whether it's flaking off paint, bent tubes, bits falling off. Now, if you're happy to do it at home, it's probably not too bad. This has turned out all right. Bit of super glue, bit of paint, and we're back to good as new, but could be a lot easier. It's that kind of thing that you just think, why hasn't somebody thought of that? Surely there's a different way they could have done the body. Maybe the join is just behind the wash stripe here, so none of this has to move. Who knows? But anyway, on the whole, I'd probably give this about 8 out of 10 overall, but that is pulled up by the quality of the detailing and reduced by the difficulty of getting into it. Anyway, lovely model. I'd love to know what you guys think about it, whether you've got one yourself, you know, what other liveries are out there. Have you gone for the Harry Needle one? Have you gone for some of the other industrial ones? Or, you know, what do you think of it? But yeah, comments below. So anyway, thanks very much for watching, folks. If you haven't already subscribed, please do. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And all that remains to be said is thanks very much for watching, and catch you next time. Cheerio for now. Bye bye.